Hello. Today's podcast is going to be on weapons safety. One of my personal favorite topics to go over because we could possibly be saving a life. For the purpose of this podcast, gun equals weapon system or weapon, and my personal favorite, pew pew. Before we get too deep into this podcast, please remember there's always an option to donate to the podcast. These things don't make themselves for free. Of course, if you're in a position where you can't donate, don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal. I'd rather you walk away a little bit safer than lighter in the pocket. Let's get the serious stuff out of the way first. What happened in the past, what you were told, what you were trained when you were 12 years old, might not actually come into play. Range safety has changed greatly over the years just because of the amount of weapons that have been introduced into the, for lack of better terms, weapons ecosystem. You have some idiots that come to the range not knowing what they're doing with 30-round clips or their GAC, and they're just there to look cool for selfies. Yeah, you can tell them right away they're going to be holding a camera in one hand and a gun in the other. Camera being cell phone, possibly. Stay away from these people. Move away from these people. Do not shoot around these people. Keep in mind, I've got a lot of experience on the range. I've shot on ranges all over the world. I know gun safety and what works. I'm at the age I'm at right now. I still don't have any holes in me yet, so either I'm extremely lucky or I've paid attention when people were going over range safety, and I've applied it every chance I got. This is not a safety outline. Boy, go backwards. This is a safety outline. This is not marksmanship training by any means. Please understand that now. I am not teaching you to shoot. I'm teaching you how to be safe in this podcast. You are not going to be qualified to go to a range and shoot after this outline. It is only to go over things you should have in your mind when you actually go to shoot. For instance, somebody you work with, relative, or someone like that takes you to the range. If you haven't had a gun safety course, which I highly, highly recommend by professionally trained individuals, you're going to see a lot of whackers up there trying to train gun safety, and as soon as they walk in, if they've got body armor and gun armor, gun leather and a gun, and you can see a mag in the gun, and all they're doing is training you on range safety, they're probably a whacker, and they're probably not the person to be learning from. I hope you didn't pay a lot of money. Keep in mind, watching a Rambo movie or First Blood or Die Hard is not qualifying you to shoot on a range, and in real life it's never like any of the movies. Once again, take a gun safety course by a trained professional, preferably NRA trained. Alright, everything mentioned in this is common sense. Common sense is not so common anymore, so you don't have to take notes, but listen, this is a wealth of knowledge being shared for safety purposes. Get it into your head now. Tactical will not be tolerated in most classrooms and at most reputable ranges due to safety concerns. If you need a working definition of tactical, here you go. Tactical is a slang term for clothing, equipment, and accessories that have a military or tactical look, but are more for aesthetics than safe, practical, functional use. For scholars and people with a wide vocabulary, tactical is a portmanteau. That means it's a word blending two other words together with sounds and meanings, being tactical and cool. This is commonly in my area referred to as a whacker, which is a stylish appearance that prioritizes looking tough over being genuinely functional and safe. Personally, I would not shoot next to a tactical warrior or a whacker on any range. Um, the problem is these people are more concerned about looking cool or tough. Probably going to offer you to let you shoot their weapon because they spent a lot of money on it, and they think they're bringing themselves down to your level and being generous, letting you shoot their golden gun. I avoid these people at all costs. They're the ones that honestly, they're going to have to make a point of pulling our sunglasses off, doing a show about that. They're going to be pulling their weapon out of the range bag, looking at it like they're trying to figure out where the bullets go when they're trying to load it. Like they don't even know what they're doing because they don't. Stay away from these people. I would really, really recommend watching a few of the range gun fail videos. You can get them on YouTube. They're all over the place. I've mentioned her once before. Alex Zedra puts out some excellent videos on gun fails and range fails. It's done in a light vein of humor, but it's also good for learning. She usually has some commentary, and her commentary is usually very applicable to range safety. So again, it's Alex Zedra, and they're her gun fail videos. I recommend when you go to the range, you're going to run across 3 or 4 different kinds of people. You've got the hillbillies with their wife beaters on and 20 guns that look like they came from the Civil War era. Don't shoot next to them. You have the NGs with their assault weapons. Don't shoot next to them. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't even shoot that day. I'd just pack up and go. Anyone with dreadlocks, be it white or black, doesn't matter what color they are. If they've got dreadlocks, I'd avoid them on the range. And lastly, and this is sad to say, avoid shooting if you see the old man pointing their gun and facing in the opposite direction of downrange and they don't know what they're doing. This does happen. I've seen it. They're flagging everyone on the range, trying to figure out who to ask for help loading their gun or running the target downrange or whatever. But you will step on the range every once in a while, and there will be an elderly gentleman there pointing their gun in the wrong direction, looking for help. Avoid it. Don't shoot next to them. Before going any further, there's always someone, usually if you're at a class at this point, that starts asking questions about concealed carry. For some unknown reason, they think it's one of the most important things that can be covered in the class. Concealed carry has nothing to do with weapon safety. I would say, as far as concealed carry goes, because it's really not part of this training thing that I'm doing right now, concealed carry, get a legal permit. Don't carry illegally. That's all I'm going to say on that. Just get a permit. Do it the legal way. We're jumping around a little bit. There's a reason for it. You're going to have to trust me. Just buckle up. For those about to bounce and head to the range, you think you've heard enough and that this is boring, give me about 5 or 10 more minutes. It might save your life, or more important, someone else's. You need to know the range terminology if you're on a range. This is used more outside than inside. However, it's all good knowledge to have, because if you have a good range coach, this is how they're going to be speaking to the masses on the range. Take note to some of them. Some of them are very, very important as far as safety goes, and some of them are just good range etiquette. First one, downrange. That's the safe direction to be pointing weapons. That's where the targets are going to be. Hopefully no people. Weapons should always be pointed downrange, even when placed on the table in front of you empty. The weapon should be pointed downrange. Another one is ceasefire. Obviously, stop shooting. When you hear ceasefire, you should be immediately making your weapon safe, holstering it, or placing it on the table in a position where everyone that sees it can see that it's unloaded. When you hear the range is hot, whether you're ready or not, people are going to start shooting. I've seen this more on ranges where you can tell you have a lot of beginners, but when they say range is hot, for some reason that doesn't register, and you have these newbies on the range trying to start to load their weapons, and the pew-pews start going off around them, and they freak out and drop the gun or start flagging people or whatever because they just didn't equate range as hot to things going boom around them. So pay attention, use your peripheral vision, watch what's going on, but when you hear range is hot, be prepared to engage. You'll hear clear your weapon. You'll hear people yelling clear your weapon. That's usually because they need someone to go down range or something to do with extreme unsafe practices on the range. Even if it doesn't apply to you, stop and clear your weapon. You'll hear commands like holster your weapon loaded or unloaded or loaded. If you hear holster your weapon unloaded, make your weapon safe. Do a visual and physical check and holster your weapon. There's a good chance if you're on an indoor range and you hear that, they're probably going to be clearing the range. Police your brass. This is a term used for telling you to clean up your brass around your station. Some ranges want you to clean up your brass before you leave the range for the day. Police your brass, that's all that means. I would still have eye protection on when doing this. It gets dirty and dusty very quickly when you're policing brass. You might hear a command such as load your magazines with blank rounds. This is usually training commands given for initial range safety training. Your first time stepping up to the line, you will not be loading a 15, 17 round magazine and letting all hell break loose downrange. You're going to fire 1, maybe 3 rounds at the most to start. It will increase, but to start, you're not going to be loading a full magazine. You might hear misfire. That means the trigger's pulled, but the gun fails to fire. This is a no shit. Follow the instructions of range personnel when this happens. If no one's standing around you when you pull the trigger and it doesn't go boom, hold the weapon in one hand and raise your hand and wait for someone to come over and help you. If you're at a good range, the range safety officer will see you and come over and give you a hand. Hang fire. This is delayed firing after the trigger's pulled. This is kind of like a misfire, only probably 5 seconds later the gun will go boom. For this reason, you keep the gun pointed in a safe direction, holding it as if you are prepared to fire. Even if you're going to raise a hand for help, keep one hand on the weapon, keep it pointed down range. Do not lay the weapon down if it's a misfire. Hang fire. This is a quick but delayed firing of the weapon. And let me go back to misfire. Some misfires never fire. This is why you want to get the range safety people involved. The next one, the hang fire, is an almost immediate release of the round. However, it doesn't go boom as soon as you drop the hammer. It will go boom eventually if it's a miss or a hang fire, but it does take a few seconds. This is usually a result of old rounds or improperly reloaded rounds. That's why I avoid them at all costs. A squib load is a really dangerous situation. A squib load is when a bullet is fired, or a round is fired, but the actual bullet doesn't leave the barrel. Firing consecutive rounds after a squib load can cause the gun to explode. This is very unsafe. You'll hear the term stovepipe. That's when you fire the weapon, you go to fire it again, and you realize the round isn't chambered and the brass is sticking out of the top of the ejection port. Drop your magazine, clear the round, make sure the gun is empty, and then, make sure that the weapon is completely empty in a make-safe situation, and then rack your magazine, reload it, and then try again. If this persists, you might have a weapons issue or you're firing undercharged rounds. Probably the most dangerous situation on the range is called flagging. Flagging is intentionally or unintentionally putting a weapon system at someone. I will tell you right now, flagging will almost always result in immediate removal from the range. If I'm working range safety that day and you flag somebody, you're going to get pulled from the range. You won't be firing anymore that day. And before I let you back on the range, I'm probably going to want to see proof of a range safety course. There's just no excuse for it. A few points to go over. You must be familiar with the weapon system you're using. You must be able to clear a jam and possibly even break down the weapon to perform basic service if the weapon continues to jam. Cleaning weapons regularly is a good way to know how the weapon works and become familiar with all its parts. Now listen, I've seen this next one so many times. People getting overzealous when they're cleaning their weapons. The weapon is actually shiny because there's that much lube on it. And when you shoot it, it leaves a cloud or like a mist of cleaner, like CLP or whatever you use to clean the gun. You shoot the gun and you actually see it spraying. There's that much lube on it. Don't do that. Your weapon should be almost dry when you fire it. Contrary to popular belief, you don't need a lot of lube on a weapon to shoot it. Don't wear gloves if you're not familiar with the weapon. Don't wear gloves to shoot. I know it looks cool, but you need that tactile experience with the weapon to know what's going on when you first start out. Don't wear gloves to shoot if you're not extremely familiar with the weapon and how to shoot it. Do not fire with more than one person in the stall if shooting indoors. I see this all the time. I see people trying to train their friends. I see two people in a stall, and it's so dangerous. Don't do this. One person, when they're ready to shoot, the other person should be stepping back with one person holding the weapon down range. If they have a problem, they can hold the weapon down range and yell over their shoulder for help. Do not shoot with two people in the stall. If possible, always shoot with someone better educated on gun safety when you're first starting out, even if you've had a gun safety class. My personal pet peeve, if you're just starting out, don't shoot experimental reloads or special purpose rounds. Just don't. The shit gets people hurt or killed all the time. You don't need to be shooting that stuff. Plus, it's harmful to the weapon probably. So just stay away from that stuff. If you don't understand plus P or higher charged rounds or what can happen to a weapon, or if you bought a really cheap weapon to start with, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you don't understand what kind of rounds to shoot, always ask someone who knows, someone probably working at the range, let them know what weapon you have and ask them what's safe to shoot through your weapon. Weapon familiarity. Always remember, the first rule, always remember, every gun is loaded until proven otherwise with a physical and visual check. And then in your mind, you should still treat it as it's loaded. Always treat a gun as if it's loaded. For weapon familiarity, you should purchase at least 5 rounds of dummy ammo for the weapon. Don't make your own. If you have reload equipment, don't take dummy rounds from somebody else. Go buy them new. They should have a rubber primer in them so it won't hurt the firing pin, but get at least 5 rounds. They're going to cost probably $10, $15 for the good ones, but these are very important to practice chambering, unloading, loading, and other safety practices with the weapon. Obviously, if you're going to purchase this ammo, you should practice loading and unloading until you become proficient. You should be able to load your magazine without looking at it. That's how proficient you should become. If you're loading a revolver, the same thing. You should be able to roll the cylinder out, load it, dump it, but you should be able to do all this without looking at it. Do not load live rounds into your magazines or revolver until you're at the range if you're just learning to shoot. You don't keep a weapon loaded. You're not going to protect your house with a weapon if you're not familiar with it and safe with it. Don't load it until you take a range safety course or get very well trained on the safety measures of the weapon and how to be safe with the weapon. Always be concerned with gun safety and never be concerned with looking cool with the weapon. You're not being gangster or OG or any of that crap. Weapon safety comes first. If you cannot perform the make the gun safe operation, you're not even prepared to go to the range at that point. You need to be able to make a weapon safe, which would be, if it's a semi-automatic in most cases, you would know to drop the magazine, lock the slide to the rear, check the chamber for a round visually and physically, and then place the weapon pointing in the safest direction possible away from you. If you cannot do this again and again safely without even looking at the weapon necessarily, you're pretty much not ready to go to the range yet. Do not have a loaded gun in the house for defensive purposes unless you have fired the gun at a range and are comfortable with it. This gun is going to do you no good. If you're afraid to shoot it, don't know how to shoot it, don't know how to clear a jam, if it's a higher powered weapon and you're not experienced with it, you're probably going to jam it after one round if you're not familiar with it. Don't have loaded weapons sitting around the house. Even if you don't have kids, even if you don't have any friends, even if you don't have a cat, don't have a loaded weapon in the house if you're not familiar with it. It's a bad idea. Don't keep a gun under your pillow like James Bond. Dear God, don't do this. It's extremely unsafe. For some strange reason, guys watch a James Bond movie or something like that where they have the gun under the pillow and think it's the most logical place to keep a weapon system. Don't do it. When you're at the range, this is big. When you're at the range, you need to follow all range instructions. They're not giving you recommendations. What the range safety instructor or the range safety personnel say is law. I know I'm kind of jumping around, but like I said, I'm trying to get a lot of ideas and a lot of notions into this podcast with a limited amount of time. So if one topic doesn't necessarily lead into the other, just roll with it. Here's a big one. Don't ask to shoot other people's weapons at the range. Just don't. I don't care how cool the gun is. I don't care how bad you want to shoot one or buy one. Don't ask to shoot other people's weapons. It's a bad idea because chances are you're not trained in safe operation of that weapon. If you're offered the option to shoot someone else's weapon, don't do it unless you've had safety training on that weapon. Again, no matter how much you want to shoot that weapon, don't ask to shoot it. And if offered, don't shoot it. Just politely decline if someone offers for you to shoot it. In a nutshell, you should not be on the range or graduated past simple safety training if you cannot disassemble, clean, and reassemble each individual weapon system you plan on shooting. Just good range safety. Now, a lot of people get tied up on the subject of weapon locks for storage and transportation. There's no reason to get tied up on that. Primary system weapon locks, they range from a cable lock to trigger lock to even a gun safe. A cable lock is probably the best idea because no matter what you have it in, it's not going to fire if you have a cable lock on it. Trigger locks, yeah, they're okay. I'm not a fan of them. I like a cable lock better. Gun safes, as long as it locks, ultimate safety. As far as locked weapons, if you're not carrying concealed with a legal permit, and I can't stress that enough, a legal permit, when you transfer a weapon, be it a vehicle, bicycle, skateboard, it doesn't matter, it should be locked in a locked case. There's no sidestepping that. Weapons should never be stored with ammunition. A lot of times you see guys open up a gun safe and you'll see the shelves off to the side and it's got all the ammo for all the guns and then the gun's right there. The idea of a weapon safe is not just to keep someone from stealing the weapon, it's to keep the weapon safe itself. The weapon is not safe if the ammunition is in close physical proximity to the weapon. So don't store ammunition with the weapon. You might as well just leave it loaded at that point. here's another big topic. How much should you spend on a weapon? Guess the first question is, how much do you have to spend on the weapon yourself? In my opinion, if you're looking at long-term safety, survival, prepping, if you have food and water stored for at least a week or two, go look at guns. If you don't have at least 2 weeks of food or water stored, don't get the gun yet. Buy more food, buy more water. There's no point in having a gun to protect food and water if you don't have any food and water. Take care of the beans and the Band-Aids first, and then go get your weapon system. You should never buy a gun just because it looks cool. The cooler guns have more parts, more moving actions on them, and they're more likely to break down. Revolver is usually your safest bet and most reliable weapon you can purchase. The golden rule of threes is, in an armed conflict, less than 3 rounds will be fired. The entire conflict will take 3 seconds or less, and the conflict will take place within 3 feet of each other. So more than 3 rounds is not necessarily needed for home safety. That's just a golden rule of threes. It doesn't mean you shouldn't get a semi-auto. I prefer a semi-auto. Just don't think you need to buy something massive like a Desert Eagle or something like that for safety or self-defense. It's a big mistake. It's impossible to conceal if you're thinking about carrying a concealed weapon, and it's so heavy it's going to pull down whatever pants you're wearing it with. Never buy a gun for its looks. Always buy a gun for its functionality and its reliability. There's also the whole natural point of aim thing, but that's not this lesson. Your first gun should be easy to use. It should be low recoil, and ammunition should be easily obtainable and cheap. You should be shooting a lot of rounds to get used to the weapon. That's why cheap is best. I recommend, if you've never shot before, you get a 22. Now, rimfire cartridges are not as reliable as center fire. 22s are rimfire, which means that the primer is engaged by the pin striking the rim of the round. Center fire is striking a firing pin in the center of the round. However, you can buy a brick 250 rounds of 22 ammunition for what it would cost to probably fill one magazine of 9mm, for example. Once you get proficient with the 22, you can move up to a larger caliber if you want to. But if you have the money or you have the time, start with the 22, be it revolver or semi-automatic. I wouldn't recommend spending a lot of money on it, especially if you plan on moving into a bigger weapon eventually. The truth of the matter is, a lot of people spend the money on a gun, whatever caliber it's going to be, put it in a nightstand next to their bed and never even shoot it. They just do it for peace of mind. It's a horrible, horrible idea, but this is the truth of the matter. They think they're safe because they have a gun. Don't realize if they don't practice with it and train with it and become proficient with it, you might as well keep a Snickers bar next to the nightstand. Somebody's going to get hurt, maybe you, or worse, probably somebody else. Don't just keep a gun in a nightstand. If you're going to do that, get very proficient with it. If you have children, never do it. Weapon safety is paramount at all times. If you have a loaded weapon, you need to keep that in mind. If you're going to get proficient, if you're going to be safe, if you're going to take this very seriously, I recommend a Glock 19 or Glock 17. Its 9mm caliber is the most widely used ammunition in the world. It's an extremely reliable, combat-proven weapon, and it's easiest to get parts for. You can get Glock mags at any gun shop. If they don't carry Glock mags, I wouldn't shop at that gun shop. A used Glock is fine if you're buying it from a reputable gun shop. Also, a lot of guns, I would say, don't buy them used. A Glock is fine for that as long as it's a reputable gun shop. Let's go over types of handguns real quick. I touched on it briefly. There's two types of handguns. I'm thinking that's what the Democrats are calling them this week, handguns, hand assault weapons, whatever they've come up with to label them dangerous. We're just going to use handguns. Again, I prefer pew-pew, but that's way too advanced for most left-wing radicals, so let's go with revolvers and semi-auto pistols. Revolvers have a cylinder that usually holds 6 rounds. Semi-autos take magazines, which can hold between 6 and 17 rounds as a rule of thumb. Honestly, anything more than 17 rounds in a magazine is just stupid and can potentially harm the weapon. If you see someone at the range with one of those ridiculous extended magazines, stay clear. Think about it. If it's a 30-round mag and they don't know what they're doing, that's a potential for 30 injuries or 30 deaths. Hopefully only to the idiot with the extended magazine, but you never know. These are also going to be the assholes shooting rapid fire and smiling like an idiot even though they never hit the target. Again, stay clear of them. There's absolutely no reason to have a magazine with that many rounds in it. It just makes no sense. Learn to reload. Don't use a 30-round magazine. It's the best advice I can give you. Also, this is just a helpful hint. Don't call magazines clips. A mag is, you can call it a mag, but that's only acceptable if you're getting shot at and need to yell, "Throw me a mag." Clip is never acceptable. Clip is something a woman or a guy with a man bun puts into their hair. Always, 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 it's a magazine. Just to help you sound a little more professional and less like a rookie. Touching on the topic of man buns, if you have a man bun, usually come along with a cup of Starbucks coffee included, and you will make the people at the range nervous. The perception of a man wearing his hair like a woman is usually a bad idea going to the range. It conveys the idea that you don't know what you're doing. Don't take your Starbucks to the range. Man bun, it's a personal thing. I guess there's nothing wrong with it if you want to wear your hair like that. Just leave your purse in the car. Wear your hair in a man bun. Again, leave your purse in the car. Just take your range bag. Probably want to get out of your high heels. Put on some comfortable shoes, closed-toe shoes. But for the sake of all involved at the range, consider getting a man's haircut, not taking your Starbucks, and do not take selfies at the range. Again, man bun, maybe you're not going to be the one taking the selfies, but you're probably taking someone to the range with you. And in the time it took me to talk about man buns, the idiot standing next to you has probably already taken 5 or 6 duck-lipped selfies. Leave him at home. Leave the Starbucks at home. Get a haircut and become proficient with the weapon system. Going to the range once you're safe, once you got rid of the man bun, yada, yada, yada. Many things need to happen to be safe on the range. There is no way to be 100% safe. You're only as safe as the persons around you. People around you sounds better. Let's go with people around you. You need to be very familiar with the weapon you're going to shoot. You need to be aware of your periphery and what is behind your target, both inside and outdoors. This isn't just inside safety. You need to be aware of who is around you, and especially who is shooting around you. Excuse me. If you observe unsafe practices, you should report it or leave the range. You are not the range police. It is not your place to correct persons you do not know, and to be frank, no one wants to hear the words of wisdom you are about to spew at them. Report them and let the range personnel deal with it. Always assume all weapons at the range are loaded. Never assume an unattended weapon is unloaded. You must have complete and total respect for the lethality of the weapon you're about to use. And of course, these are all once you're at the range now. You need to, when you take the weapon out of your bag, make the weapon safe, lay it down, point it down range. Again, Again, before you go to the range, you should practice making a weapon safe, and only with dummy ammo. You practice it until you can do it without looking at the weapon. You need to be well acquainted with the ammunition you're about to use. I touched on this earlier. Heavier load ammunition or weapon designed for penetration is not allowed at most ranges, especially indoors. Check with range officers before using any type of other than standard ball ammunition. Be aware when you're shooting outside that some ammunition has a greater likelihood of starting brush fires. Never shoot that type of ammunition outside, ever. Do not use reloaded ammunition unless it's factory reloaded. Wow, let's start that one again. Do not use reloaded ammunition unless it's a factory reload, and then still be cautious. Always have ear and eye protection. If shooting with persons that have not shot before, make sure they're wearing ear and eye protection. Keep in mind, if shooting indoors with someone that's new, the concussive forces that will be a result of firing a weapon are going to scare the crap out of people that aren't used to it. Explain to them that this is going to happen before they shoot, so they might be a little more safe. But always make sure everyone shooting around you has ears and eyes on as well. Most ranges do not allow rapid fire or quick dump shooting. Don't even do it if you're allowed to. It's not realistic, it's dangerous, and it's a complete waste of ammunition. It doesn't look cool. You're not going to hit the target. I don't care who you are. It's very hard to control a weapon in a rapid fire situation. It's extremely unsafe. Again, with the ammunition, don't assume just because it fits your weapon it's allowed on the range. Always check before firing anything other than ball ammunition. Do not fall for the onlooker wanting to try your weapon. Politely decline. This is a guy who wants to shoot for free and might not even know what he's doing. Always decline someone walking up wanting to shoot your weapon. And again, do not shoot the weapons from people that are offering to let you shoot unless you're very well trained on that weapon system. To recap, the 6 fundamental rules to firearms safety. Every gun is loaded until proven otherwise. After you unload it and make it safe, handle it like it's still loaded. Next, always keep your weapon system pointed in a safe direction and never point it at something you are not willing to kill or destroy. This goes for if the weapon's loaded or unloaded. Never put your finger on the trigger until you are 100% ready to shoot. Never load your gun until you are ready to engage your target. Always be aware of what is behind your target. Going to hit this one again just for good measure. Always assume every gun is always loaded. Do not go to a range to teach yourself how to shoot. Take a course. This is not like plumbing. You can get yourself or someone else killed if you just go and try it. Worst thing you're going to do if you don't know what you're doing with plumbing is, I don't know, I guess you could drown, but realistically, you're going to make a mess. You're probably not going to hurt anybody. The range, you could hurt or kill someone. When shooting with inexperienced shooters, I'm going to recommend you don't, but if you're going to, oh man, how do you even touch on this one? This one's so dangerous. If you're shooting with inexperienced shooters, do not hand them a weapon with a full magazine or cylinder. Let them learn slowly with 1 round at a time. Move them up to 3 rounds, and then maybe a full magazine. Don't hand them a full magazine if they've never shot before. This is a really bad idea. They really shouldn't touch the weapon until you give them a good safety briefing. And like I said, ramp them up in rounds. Don't hand them a full magazine for their weapon. They're most likely scared and at the very least nervous. Most likely about to make you a statistic if you haven't trained them on basic range safety. Give them a good training overview before you start. Keep in mind that private ranges are almost always safer, more exclusive, and less crowded, and most definitely cleaner than like multi-stall, large public ranges. I prefer private ranges, and even more than that, I prefer to shoot outside. Now, with all these things in mind, which I was trained on before I ever started working at the range, I learned all my skills in the military to start. I had a personal oh shit moment at the range, and I'm going to share that with you. About 35 years ago, probably longer than most of you have been alive, I worked at a well-known pistol range in the area I lived in. It was only part-time, but I got free reloads from a reputable source, free targets, and free range time, so I really did it just to shoot and not for the money. We really only had one rule amongst the crew that worked at the range, and that was that you never let anyone close the range alone for obvious reasons. It's very dangerous to close the range by yourself. That being said, I got the call one night about 9:20. One of the guys was closing and he couldn't get anyone else to help him close. I had just come home from working a double shift, but the team always comes first, so I drove to the range to help him close. It was only about 10 minutes away, so I figured, what the heck. When I walked in, he gifted me an Army Air Corps 1911 A1 and told me it was a late birthday present. He informed me he had trigger work done on it, and he encouraged me to squeeze one off to feel the trigger pull. I politely declined. He insisted that I squeeze one off, squoze one, whatever, to feel how nice the trigger pull was, because military issue 45s have horrible trigger pull as a rule of thumb. So I picked the weapon up, leveled it off, aimed at about a 2-inch target inside a clock about 25 feet away from me, and I pulled the hammer. And I shot the gun. The gun went pew, pew, boom, whatever you want to call it, and I discharged the weapon inside the manager's office. The good news is I hit the target, the 2-inch target, 25 feet away. The bad news is the round went through the clock, into the wall, and tore up in the wall. Yeah, that was really bad. That was a really bad situation. It startled me so much, and I was so tired that I dropped the 45 and pulled my holstered weapon. I thought we were getting getting shot at. That's how tired I was. We did believe it or not, we did put a Band-Aid on the clock. I don't know if that was like symbolic of making things better, but we were idiots. He should have never handed me a loaded weapon, and I should have never picked it up and dry fired it without checking first to see if it was unloaded. Someone could have gotten seriously hurt or killed. I would have been solely responsible. I learned a very important lesson that day, and you should learn from it. Someone hands you a weapon, always check to make sure it's unloaded. Never do anything with the weapon before checking. Even if you're going to hurt their feelings saying you don't trust them by checking the weapon, check the weapon. Now I'm going to give you an example of why it's extremely important to pay attention at the range to everything going on around you. I've mentioned it once or twice. You need to be aware of everything taking place within sight and hearing at the range, even with earmuffs on. About a year after I killed the clock, I was working at the range. I was behind the counter, and 2 men came in. One was just shifty. The other one, there was something wrong with him. You could tell right off the get-go. But who am I to judge people? I immediately started asking them a series of questions, which we had outlined as standard procedure before putting people on the range if they look like they're partially intoxicated, under the influence, or out of their mind. They were both able to answer the questions. I still made a recommendation to the manager working that day not to let them on the range, just because of how, I don't know, for lack of better terms, deranged the one guy looked, but he said to let them shoot if they answered all the questions correctly. Before they went into the range, I went one step further and asked the weird one if he needed help or instructions. He looked at me, God, I still can see the look on his face, and said, "No, the gentleman I'm with will teach me everything I need to know." For some strange reason, this was a red flag to me. I watched them on camera the whole time they were at the range shooting. I watched them when they came out, and they bought another box of ammunition on the way out. The same ammunition they shot. Jacketed 9mm. I think it was 115 grain. Nothing special. federal, excuse me, and they left without incident. About a week later, the news showed a picture of the killer and stated that he had killed a 15-year-old girl, shot her in the back, some kind of a infatuation thing that she turned him down or something like that. But he got out of his car when she was walking into school and shot her in the back. I immediately called the police. They put me on hold, and when the operator came back on, I said, before you put me on hold again, I can tell you what ammunition the shooter used. I can tell you the caliber, and I have important information of what went down before he shot her. Because I was paying attention to what happened, because I took accurate records at the range, I was able to provide the type of ammo, the handgun, the make of the handgun, a good description of the gentleman and the gentleman he was with. And as a result of my testimony and the information that I had, the prosecutor could prove aggravated murder when they were trying to prove some kind of weak-ass insanity case. My testimony was what put the guy away for aggravated murder. I guess what I'm trying to say is, when you go to the range, listen to what I just said. If you're not paying attention, you could possibly kill or hurt someone. The day I paid attention, I was able to put a child killer away for a long time, or help put a child killer away for a long time. Stay away from guns if you're tired. Don't go near them. Don't clean them. Don't do anything. If you're alert and safety oriented, you can go to the range and have a good time. But stay away from weapon systems if you're tired, groggy, under the influence, anything like that. Always be safe. Learn how to shoot. If you're not going to take a class, at least from someone who really knows what they're doing. Preferably military people that got out on honorable discharges. None of these commandos that got out, because they couldn't cut it. Always learn from someone that knows what they're doing. Be safe. Have fun. But always, always, always be safe at the range. Later.